Hi, this is AchieveScale and I'm Brent Trammell. This short series of videos is my experiment in sharing with clients and colleagues a lightweight approach for scaling programs and organizations without creating a lot of bureaucracy. Last time we talked about classifying the information that flows through an organization as being convergent, divergent, or point-to-point. Today we're talking about convergent flows, those which combine and consolidate inputs from a broad range of sources for a relatively narrow group of consumers. This is the information that percolates up through an organization and gives managers and executives at various levels the overview, perspective, and context to know what's working and what needs to be changed as the program unfolds. It may not be particularly glamorous, but within this information is everything we could ever know that would help ensure the success for the program. Unfortunately, there are characteristics inherent in convergent flows that can work against us if they're not managed. The first is, as I've said before, that convergent information comes from a broad range of sources across the program. Virtually any activity anywhere can generate some kind of data that contributes to this kind of flow. So this data permeates the program, and depending on the size, there can be quite a lot of it. The implication here is that it changes between the time it's created and the time it's consumed. A CIO can't do much with a stack of developer status reports. So no matter what, it's going to get filtered and consolidated along the way. This is one of the key points of this entire series, because if we don't pay close attention to how that filtering and consolidation takes place, it's going to be done informally, paying attention to the squeakiest wheels, ignoring data because it's badly formatted, depending on the talents of individual heroes, which doesn't really scale very well. The next characteristic of convergent information is that it's heterogeneous. It's not uniform in topics, depth of coverage, importance, or relevance. It's not uncommon for organizations to ignore this heterogeneity and impose a one-size-fits-all process to ensure that data is captured and documented. Process uniformity has its benefits, but if not done carefully, we end up with process for its own sake. Administrative burdens can be out of proportion to the benefit provided, and productivity suffers. The last, and in some ways most crucial characteristic that I want to touch on is the fact that convergent information, the benefits it's intended to provide don't accrue to the person or group who creates it, except perhaps in an abstract way, like taking one for the team or keeping your boss off your back. This information doesn't get software written. It doesn't provision any infrastructure. It certainly doesn't sell anything. In my experience, this is the source of the most pervasive double standard in the business world. Every manager I've ever worked with has wanted visibility into what his or her team is doing. But when it comes time to provide the same visibility to their superiors, they almost universally balk at what they perceive to be unproductive drudgery. They often approach it from a perspective of risk avoidance. Bad news is held back in hopes that things can be fixed before word gets out. Even potential good news is often delayed to either make sure it's ironclad or to manage the timing to achieve some other objective, like offsetting bad news or to provide support for some sort of resource request. This filters out the most useful information. What's left are the most mundane facts delivered in a perfunctory way. It's a self-reinforcing downward spiral. Low-quality information won't get used, and there's no point in expending energy to improve information that won't get used. So how do we deal with large quantities of non-uniform information that no one wants to produce? That's the meat of this whole topic. First, we need to understand the transformations required of convergent information as it flows up the organizational hierarchy. Then, automating wherever possible, we apply those transformations to the different dimensions of project-level data as appropriate for the organization's structure and priorities. If we do it right, the result is less work, more useful, and more integrated with the inward-facing project management practices that project managers should already be using. In the next episode, I'll begin talking about how to approach those transformations. I'll look at aggregation, abstraction, and interpretation, and start to lay out how to apply them to standard project management data. If you have any comments or suggestions, please head over to AchieveScale.com and leave me a note. Thanks for watching.